Whoever wins out of Arsenal or Chelsea will win the Champions League.
No one on this pod so far, and I actually probably doubt that anyone in the future will come on this pod and be like, yeah, so I got into creating women's football content because...
That is an absolute mega question.
Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans Fanzone with me, Luce. As you can see, today we have Mia on the screen, who I feel like is another example of why the women's football space is so important, because it brings lots of people together with the same passions, especially in terms of like content creation, which we're going to talk all about that in a few moments. But I feel like the same way that I start every Arsenal Humans Fanzone episode, and to be fair, yeah, I'm very excited about this one in particular, because I feel like right now with Arsenal, we're at a very good point. And I feel like, yeah, just the season as a whole, I'm very excited. So the question I'm going to start off with is, why Arsenal? So why, Mia, do you support Arsenal?
To be fair, it was where I was like based at the time. It wasn't that far away from like the training ground or to like get like a train to Finsbury Park. So it was always like trying to like be involved in the community and always trying to like support like a local team at the time. As well, I was playing football since I was like 5 years old. So Arsenal Women was always that team that was just like successful, but also was quite like, especially where I lived, everyone kind of knew about Arsenal, how the women's team was getting on as well. So because they had that little bit of exposure, not much, but like little bit, we always knew how well Arsenal were doing, always knew they like won the Champions League in the past. It just made more sense for me as a women's football fan, as a football fan and a footballer myself at the time, that Arsenal was always going to be the team that I was going to follow. And I made the right choice.
No, you definitely did, especially now. I feel like things are proper heating up on both sides, like both the men and women.
Yeah.
But sort of what age are you talking when you're saying like, oh yeah, people sort of were knowing about the game, and when you lived maybe closer to it, like what sort of age were you?
Oh, good question. It was before I moved, so we had like two like players, like Faye White being one of them, like coming to the school I was at the time, in the assembly, and like a football tournament I'd done when I was really, really small, like, you know, the Arsenal, like some Arsenal players there. So we are always kind of knew, like, you know, the players, and like just like how the squads were like kind of doing. Again, nowhere near its exposure as a men's. I feel a lot of men's football growing up, especially. But you know what, like the women's team, like we always kind of like, my parents always said like, oh, Arsenal women are playing, oh, Arsenal women play in Bournemouth Wood, for instance. So I always kind of knew that it was near and around me at the time.
No, honestly, it's so cool. I think it's so nice to have that exposure from a young age, because I feel like me, like my sort of journey as well, getting into football, supporting Arsenal, like I've mentioned a lot on this pod before, is basically through the women's side, because I feel like if there was any team growing up when we were like 10, 11, 12 years old, it was going to be Arsenal. Like any team, you look to see the best players. Like you said, Faye White, that's actually mad that she came to this school. Like all these names that you know from history. But then obviously I'm like, oh, that's actually not too far in history, because that's obviously when we grew up. But obviously you say that you've moved away, and I know from seeing you obviously like at a game, we realised before we started recording that was like last year when I saw you at a game. But I know that you travel a lot, obviously for Arsenal, probably one of the most dedicated fans because of the distance. But how do you navigate being an Arsenal fan that doesn't actually live in London?
I think for me, it's always kind of been like on and off. So I did play football at like really good level growing up, especially being like a teenager from 13 to 17. So I was always kind of like traveling to and from London. So then kind of like keep an eye on everything and really, really following it. I did find really, really difficult then, but I always made an effort to, you know, kind of do it. But I think especially just like, again, like I always used to like stay up, especially for the men's side, watching Match of the Day. Either like in the evenings or the first thing in the morning on a Sunday, like waking up after like me like playing football the day before. So yeah, I feel like for me, because I always knew I used to live in the area, I always knew at some point that I was always hoping that the women's game was always going to grow. So I remember when, like shout out to West Ham for doing this, the British Youngest Football Boss documentary, when Jack Sullivan was the owner, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, might be wrong.
I'm going to take your word for that one.
Yeah. But yeah, so when watching that back in like 2019, that 2018-2019 season, I actually then went to see Arsenal versus West Ham. So the minute I kind of saw that documentary kind of come out again, like seeing the growth of women's football, the 2015 World Cup, like the 2019 World Cup, it then again, when I was playing football in London, I always try my best to kind of go to a game, always kind of like see how far away I was from Arsenal, for instance. So the travelling side this season hasn't been that bad, because again, I was kind of used to kind of travelling even further sometimes when I was playing. But I've always really wanted to see Arsenal play and see them play loads, and I'm just really grateful that's kind of happened this season.
No, definitely, because I feel like, especially, we're going to talk about it in a bit, like the Champions Cup, like you get to
Yeah,
see them lift the silverware, and I think that's one reason why the fan base, especially of Arsenal women, more so than like any other WSL club, stands out, because we do have fans that are willing to come from all over. Because I think it's more so, obviously it's great to watch the football, but I think it's more the community and like people chatting to each other, everyone being friends. Like it sort of just feels like a good community vibe, definitely. Just going back to obviously when you first sort of got into the game, or like Arsenal men, women,
yeah.
whatever you want to talk about, do you have any earliest memories of any players? Obviously you mentioned Faye White, but any games that you went to in particular that like stand out in your head?
So games wise, my first game I went to was actually in 2019, just because of I was playing football so much when
Hmm.
I was younger, and like got a brother, like my dog at the time as well. Like it was always important to spend time with my family as
Yeah.
well on like a Sunday. So I don't really remember like really like watching them playing at Meadow Park up until 2019. But Kelly Smith being a player that was always like that legend that everyone really wanted to look up to, like
Yeah.
Jill Scott, Alex Scott, Rachel Yankee, just like all those players. I remember my first like Lionesses game being at Vitality Stadium back in 2014 as well, and kind of like seeing those players like in person, it was just absolutely
Hmm.
incredible.
Honestly, I think it's insane when you can go from watching like players, like you said, on Match of the Day, you see pundits talking about the games, you can see highlights of the games, and then actually being sat in person and
Yeah,
suddenly you're seeing these people. I mean, most of the names you just mentioned are obviously Arsenal legends. I'd want to word it like
yeah.
that, like people that are so ingrained in Arsenal, and when you think of them, you do think of the likes of Rachel Yankee, Alex Scott, and especially that's the team that I used to go and watch, like with the Kelly Smith, the Rachel Yankee, Alex Scott. Those players were always in that core team when I first got into it. So I feel like definitely like that's really cool that your journey sort of started at that point. I sort of just want to talk more about your favourite moments. You mentioned just then documentaries, obviously the West Ham one, which sort of got you into women's football. And I think for me, the documentary that's probably my favourite documentary that I've watched recently has to be the one about Arsenal lifting the Champions League trophy, which I feel like honestly everyone might as well do a shot. Like every time I say it on every single podcast that I've done since we've won it, because I think it's so important. Obviously now we're actually not only just champions of Europe, we're champions of the world. So we've taken up another level recently. But documentaries like that and moments like that, are there any that stand out to you that you're like, this is my favourite moment, I want to relive it? Maybe it's the recent one in the Champions Cup.
I've got two. So, in person, my
Hmm.
two in person have got to be when we beat Chelsea 4-1, 2 years ago now. It was under Jonas, but because I kind of like, we weren't really playing that well that season. Like we
Hmm.
lost to Liverpool at home the first game of the season. Like we didn't really like the season wasn't going that well. Like I saw Arsenal play Aston Villa and we kind of scored two last minute goals in added time, but
Hmm.
then like when that Chelsea game kind of happened, obviously then we lost to Spurs the week after. But it was just an incredible moment, and Chelsea's that team that everyone wants to beat. So to be able to beat them at the Emirates Stadium with a record crowd at the time, beating them 4-1 as well was just so unforgettable and one of my favourite games I have gone to. And of course, I've got to say the Champions Cup as well. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, one of the biggest fan of VAR, that Katie McCabe decision. But apart from that, we played we played all right. No, it was a really nice day. It was really cool to see different teams as well that I would not usually like see in person, and I think that was like the most important thing for me about the weekend as well. So I really enjoyed like watching us lift the trophy. Also, just watching the players celebrate and having a really good time
Hmm.
as well. I've been to so many Women's FA Cup finals. I've never seen Arsenal like win a trophy. So it was just an amazing moment, and I've been looking back at like some videos throughout the last few days and just smiling, just watching them back. So yeah,
I was gonna say I've seen your content of like the players. Like I think there was one where it was like they need to stay warm and things like that, like whilst waiting to get their medals and just soaking up that atmosphere. I'm one of probably many people that were watching it either at home, like I was working that day, so I sort of had it on the screen at work and then on my phone when I was travelling home. So for any of us that weren't actually able to witness Arsenal lift the first trophy of 2026, hopefully the first of many, can you just like talk me through what the atmosphere was like? Because obviously we saw the game, but you're saying obviously you got to see lots of different teams. Corinthian fans, their energy looked so, so good. So is there anything in particular that stands out for you that to make us feel like we were there as well?
I would say the Corinthian fans. The Corinthian fans were absolutely brilliant. So I was in the North Bank, so I was right opposite them, and they were just absolutely like just constantly bringing out the noise, bouncing about as well. Also, like the subs, like the whole like Corinthians team on the bench when they scored, like it was absolutely like incredible. Like I had never seen anything like it before. And it just shows their passion, and again, it just shows like how rewarding it is to like see other teams as well and see the growth. Like the Arsenal atmosphere as well was really, really good. You know, North Band was really loud because I think the Corinthians fans are really loud as well. So it kind of brought the best out of both atmospheres for having both like sides of like the like both obviously the North Bank and the Clock End as well, being really loud and kind of bouncing off each other. So it was really nice.
It is so nice to just see different fan bases that we don't normally see, because I think especially when we're talking about clubs that have come from Brazil and America all coming to the Emirates, whereas normally it's just the English clubs that we get to see. And obviously we know that in terms of like the WSL, Arsenal will probably be the loudest fan base or the most energetic. So it's actually really nice when you can just see how different clubs do it and be welcoming. And I'm hoping that this is the start of something new. Like obviously this year I feel like it was a bit unpredictable going into it. We didn't really know what was going to happen because obviously there was only 4 teams, which is mad that a whole competition to decide if you're Club World Cup champions basically is decided in 2 games. So it's actually insane that it only took a week, but hopefully as it progresses in the future there will be expanded out a little bit. But yeah, like obviously those 2 games that you mentioned, like being your favourite games that you've witnessed in person, like unreal. And I think it's just so nice that Arsenal was able to bring that. The rivalry with Chelsea, I think for me as well, a recent game that is so good is obviously when we beat Chelsea a couple of weeks back 2-0. I was lucky enough to be in the away end, and I've never actually been like in a proper away end for an Arsenal game at all. So it just honestly felt so cool to be part of that. Like it felt loud, the atmosphere, it felt like a proper away game. And obviously we got the result we wanted, so I feel like that just helped. Talking more about obviously the fan bases and stuff, and obviously favourite moments, like favourite Arsenal moments, I just want to hear your perspective, because I feel like I have mine, and I've heard lots of people speak on this podcast and just chat to me in everyday life about the fan base. But why do you think this Arsenal fan base, especially the women's side, is so special? Like, why does it stand out compared to other WSL fan bases?
I think Arsenal, as a football club, I think have been around that little bit longer. So then there'll be some fans that'll be watching the game that will be watching Arsenal back in like Meadow Park, for instance, and like watching them when I was like really, really small. So I think the history of the club, I think, really helps with the atmosphere as well, and helps the fans that have been, watching Arsenal women for such a long time. I think as well, like it's just a community of everyone, like it's a really nice atmosphere. Like I try and sit like in block 10 to block 7 because I feel like that's like I know so many people now. Like I feel like I've made so many friends this year as well. We're not even at the end of the season yet. Like it's been really, really nice to see. So no, I think what makes a fan base so special is I think how like you can go to a game and like you can like connect with so many people, you can meet so many people. And I think as well like the history of the club also really, really helps as well. And I do really hope though that other teams build up that atmosphere, other teams get more fans in the game as well. And I really hope that that is something that like loads of like WSL2 clubs and below will kind of look at, like the marketing in terms of how they can increase that fan base a little bit more. 'Cause I think it is really important.
No, definitely, it's so important. Like you said, it can be a bit daunting when you go to a game, like if you go by yourself. But then if you just start talking to the person sat next to you or someone in a pub or something like that, you slowly can
Yes.
build up that community. And I feel like everyone's got a common interest, which is literally Arsenal or supporting women. And I feel like those 2 things are so aligned, like especially with me, the content I do. I know the same with you and the content you do. It's very much like we want to promote the women's game. And by chatting about your favourite players or favourite moments or things like that, it's just such a nice way to bring everyone together. Talking about that though, is there any favourite players that stand out to you, whether that's the likes of Faye White, Kelly Smith back in the day, or if that's any current players that stand out to you right now?
It's gonna sound so generic, but I'm such a Russo fan. Like I've got,
Classic.
apart from this one, it's got Williams on the back of the shirt. Like Russo's on the back of my Lionesses shirts, on the back of my Arsenal shirts. Like I'm such a Russo fan. I think she's such a great player, and I think even I don't think she's like a striker, like out and out striker. I feel like she's like an attacking midfielder, and I just really like whenever Russo plays, I always kind of see what she's trying to do, hold up play, you know, her shooting, her passing, like her tracking back. Like I just really enjoy watching Russo play, and I think again gonna sound generic, but before Russo, Viv Miedema, because it was that season that I was getting back into the game again. That you know Viv like, helped Arsenal win the WSL, which is quite sad. It's the last WSL we've won. But anyway,
We don't need to dwell on that too long.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter too much. But like Viv was always like a massive like standout player, and I remember like watching like Farrah Williams, for instance, as well, like for the Lionesses, and like you know just there's so many like players that like stand out for like so many individual moments. But yeah, Roos at the moment is like my favourite player.
I don't think anyone could hate Russo. I think
No.
not only what she does on the pitch, she is scoring goals, she's creating goals, she's having that dominance presence up at the top. But I think also in terms of, I don't know, I just think it's like how she comes across in the media, how she comes across away from the pitch. She just comes across as a really sweet, genuine person. So I think in terms of if anyone wants any sort of role models, the likes of Russo. So honestly, great shout. You brought Viviana Miedema up, which... Honestly, talking about her, obviously, in an Arsenal context, is so sad because I genuinely feel like whatever went on, which I don't think anyone's going to fully know unless you were actually in that change room and you were her or you were Edeval, whatever went on behind the scenes there, it's just so sad of how it ended up falling apart. But to be fair for her, I do feel like the move to City did her really well, and I feel like she is definitely thriving there. Obviously, they're sat at the top of the WSL, which sadly we're going to have to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, definitely, I feel like those players, such a great shout. I feel like for me as well, Russo definitely has to be one of my favourite players because of what she does on and off the pitch. Same with Ruben Moy. I feel like a lot of the players have such a good presence in how they go into the community, they set up different foundations and they want to actually help as well as do their career. Because at the end of the day, there shouldn't be that expectation that you need to actually do anything other than your job. So it's just nice when they want to go, you know, above and beyond, which is really good. Sort of moving away from actually being a fan and then the transition that you made to actually create content, how did that sort of come about? Like, why did you want to firstly create content for women's football, Arsenal in particular? Like, when did this happen? Like, why?
So this is actually quite a funny story just because it kind of goes back so many years now to when I was like around about 13 years old. I started like filming me riding, like doing like scooter videos on YouTube. So I always kind of had that passion for like wanting to like create content and create videos. Then when I started playing football more seriously, I kind of stopped doing that.
Can I just ask more about the scooter videos just before, because I feel like this is in chronological order. When you say scooter videos, do you mean like as in just you like riding around on your scooter, or like what sort? I'm trying to picture like what a scooter video. And for anyone that doesn't know as well, maybe I'm being stupid and this is like a trend that I just didn't clock onto.
So it was we used to have like a skate park near where I used to live. So it was always like on like a Sunday, take me and my dad would take me and my brother to the skate park. Or my mum would take me and my brother to the skate park to, you know, go scootering, and I just seemed to just enjoy it more and more I was going. And then like no, I was just going more and more. And then when I kind of hit like 13 years old, I was kind of like not enjoying football that much. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm really enjoying my scootering at the moment. So I just started going to the skate park more and like learning different tricks. I'll be honest, it was majority tail whips, which is like where you like flip, like swing the handlebars around, and like the deck then like swings around as well, and then you try and catch it, like land it.
Sorry, but this is honestly such a niche way to get into creating content like for women's football. Like, I actually, because you briefly mentioned this before we started recording, and I was like, right, I literally said it to you in the moment. I was like, I'm going to make a note of this because I don't think that I could predict, and like no one on this pod so far, and I actually probably doubt that anyone in the future will come on this pod and be like, yeah, so I got into creating women's football content because I liked recording videos of like when I went to skate parks and stuff. Like, that's such a cool way to get into it. So yeah, sorry, Karen, with what you were going to say, but I just wanted to pause with that because that is such a cool way to get into it, such a random way.
So I've done like tutorials on like how to like tail whip. I think we should like, I don't have to tail whip one still out, but I know like different like scooter edits that I've done. They're actually still on my on my YouTube.
Everyone go
Um,
check them out. Go stalk Mia and go find them, because I mean that's exactly what I'm gonna do before I go to work. I need to find them, because that's honestly, that's so cool. Like that's such a cool skill to have. I don't know, I feel like you could probably go into competitions with that sort of skill. So, there was different directions you could have taken with it, but obviously you chose to go more down the women's football.
yeah.
So you enjoyed content creation, sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're all good. No, yeah. So I just was like doing loads of scootering, and then when I kind of like was playing football quite like a decent level, I stopped doing that because I kept on injuring myself. Then what I done was it kind of got back into COVID, and then I tried doing like different types of videos. So like, for instance, again, it's on my page, so I don't mind speaking about it. It was like one of my front teeth were fake just due to a scooter accident I had at the skate park. One of the reasons why I stopped scootering. So I had like my whole like teenage years of like a gap and everything, which was fine. So I kind of like explained that on my channel, just like how like I'd done it, just in case of anyone that kind of like met me at the time didn't really want to ask, and then it was kind of on my page. Then again, I stopped that for a little bit, and then I kind of went into college, my final year, kind of trying to figure out what I really want to do in terms of like, do I want to create content? Because I've always kind of been really envious of people that were, but I just was so scared to do it. And I started off doing men's football, but I wasn't really enjoying it because I was like, well, my main passion is trying to grow the women's game, and that's always been something in like school projects, for instance, I would do speeches about and that. So I kind of like went to Arsenal versus Aston Villa back in 2023, and I done like a video of like Beth Mead's return from a like ACL injury, and it got like over like 100 likes, and I was like, okay, this could be something that like if I just feel more comfortable doing, I can do more. And it just went from there and went to Arsenal versus Chelsea, and I was like, right, like let's just see where I am at from 2024 to 2025 and kind of see how my growth is and if I'm actually enjoying it. And I haven't really looked back since then. I was just like, I just kind of just went from like full steam ahead, just filming loads, uploading loads, and then end of 2025, end of 2024, sorry, everything seemed to have clicked. And like, I was really enjoying content. I wasn't really having to think much about what I was saying. Like, everything's kind of like informal, like in terms of like how I kind of like speak. If I plan loads of notes, I would just stumble my whole entire way through. So I always kind of like just like speaking. I've always kind of like speaking about football. So for me, it was kind of like, well, that's absolutely fine. I just carry on doing that. I'm not expecting to like hit 7K. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous the start of the year so far. And I'm really, really grateful for everyone's support. And I now get people coming over to me when I'm at the Emirates Stadium, especially at Meadow Park. I did it once I was at St Mary's as well, coming over to me saying, I really like your content. You're one of my favourite creators. And I'm like, this is mega. Like, I'm really, really grateful. Cool. That's what I want to do is I just want to make people feel welcome, feel valued as well. Because, like, you know, I've always said before, like in a space where kind of like I've kind of like always like felt left out, kind of like was like struggling to connect with people. Football's always been that thing that I could really talk about quite well, and I really do hope that for anyone that doesn't really feel like they fit in anywhere, that they can kind of come my channel, they can kind of come my lives when I'm at live, and just feel like themselves. And I think that's something I really, really try to do.
I love that message so much, and I think you can definitely tell. I had actually Beatrice on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like she's very much aligned with obviously like what you're saying in terms of promoting the women's game and the reason why you're doing it. And I think you can tell it's so obvious. I don't know if it's just obvious to me, but you can tell when you've got content creators or influencers that are doing it just to get that brand deal or just to collab with this famous person or something, just to get followers and have that lifestyle. And then you can tell the creators that really care about what they're doing. And honestly, it shines through with your work. I think the amount of like consistent videos you do as well, and like going live and things like that, and especially what you're saying when you can't make a script for the passion. Like, don't get me wrong, right now with this interview sort of vibe, I was like, okay, I've got a few notes of just like headlines of what I want to talk about, but then I mean, I didn't know you were going to start talking about when you did scootering or anything, so you just got to go with the conversation, So I think it's just so good when you can do that, and it definitely shines through. Obviously, I feel like you're still early days with it. Like, it's only been a couple of years. And there'll be so many people that will probably be or not so many people, but like there'll be people that will be listening. I was like, we've got so many fans over here. No, we actually don't. But I'm saying that there will be a lot of the people that are listening that will have a love, obviously, for Arsenal, probably for the women's game or the men's game. It doesn't matter. That will want to create this content. And honestly, for me, the thing is just like, just post a video. It doesn't matter if it's really bad. I remember my first video was literally like not as authentic to me now, but in the moment I was like, yeah, this will be good. It was literally, I think it was 3 years ago, when there was all rumours of Declan Rice coming to Arsenal, and I did one of them videos where you point and I was like, 5 reasons why Declan Rice should come to Arsenal. Number 1, and then like I was pointing, which you don't see that sort of content from me now because that's not as aligned with me. But then there's content that I do now that some people used to do as their first bit of content. And then they sort of just find that might be more suited to them, or this might be. It's just, I think it's so good, like you said, sort of just good to just like get into it just to start it. But over the last few years, has there been anything that stands out as, oh my God, this is amazing? Like, obviously you've got a lot of gratitude for when people say hi to you, they recognise you. But are there any moments, like I know I think you're an ambassador, or you've worked with like Football Her, like the clothing company, things like that. Are there any opportunities that stand out that you're like, yeah, I really love this?
Yeah, so the Football Her ambassador one was definitely a big one for me. It was kind of like my first like ambassador in that I done. Like, it's I really like the brand, like stands for, and yeah, I was just really, really grateful I got the opportunity. Just started doing like affiliate with Football Fans as well, which is like again like something I really do stand for when it comes to like old football shirts and everything, like retro shirts and like keeping everything authentic, which is what I try and do the best I can. Another big moment is doing a video with one of like the streaming services before like the Champions League really like kicked off, and because I wanted to kind of fit it in my niche, I kind of like spoke about Arsenal, which again something I never really thought was gonna happen. Like, I was always just like, okay, like I'm just gonna create content and just see how it's gonna go. I was never really expecting to like film a video for someone to like begin the Champions League, or like do a video be like an ambassador, sorry, for someone. You know what I mean? So it's all these like small moments that kind of like get me to where I am now. And when I hit when I hit 7K, that was absolutely incredible as well, because it's like, okay, all my hard work and everything is finally paying off. Like it took a while. Like anyone that's starting, I always say like, just be patient. As long as you're consistent, you will get somewhere. As long as you're consistent, as long as you're being yourself, don't try and be like someone else. Just be yourself the whole entire way through, and you will succeed in it. Like, it's just being patient.
No, exactly. And I think it also depends what you want from it, because for some people, they might not necessarily want 100,000 followers. They just want like 10,000 followers that are aligned with them. Or for some people, they might want the 100,000 followers, and it doesn't matter if they like their content or not. They just want the numbers. So I think it's good that obviously you can see you're very intentional with who you're working with, which I think is so important. And then also the content you're putting out there is consistent, and it's also relevant to people that are engaging. And that's why you've had so much growth, obviously, like you said, with TikTok in particular, reaching 7,000 followers, which is obviously insane. And then hopefully that would just keep on growing. Is there anything, I mean, I don't like the question of 5 years, so I'm not going to ask you any like 5-year plan, because I feel like that just puts pressure on. But if you could do anything, maybe like a near future goal, or anything that you're like, okay, I want to, like, maybe let's manifest, we can use this as a space of like, we're going to manifest this, but also, is there a direction you want to take it in? Or are you actually just like, I didn't expect to get to this point, so I'm just going to see where it takes me?
So my main goal in terms of like followers, but again, numbers don't mean everything, would be to try and hit 10K by the end of the year. I think that is like my like milestone trying to hit. I mean, my birthday's in the end of March, so I'm trying to hit 7.5 or 8K by that time, by the time I turn 22, which again, I always try to hit a birthday milestone, just try and make me push a little bit harder throughout February, March time, especially. I think another one of my goals would just be to try and work with other people, work with other like teams as well, to try and help grow the women's game. I'm trying to do more content about the WSL too. I'm trying to like cover like more teams, especially since around like November time. I've been trying to like do different match reactions for different teams, when I can. Again, if I'm at the Emirates Stadium all day, it's quite hard for me to cover. Like if like London City Lionesses win or lose, or like West Ham, like the relegation battle. So I think to try and like do more work with other teams and try to everyone to kind of like work together to kind of like try and see, right, so how can we bring like the women's football audience for everyone, both at home, both in the stadiums as well, because I think that is something that we like everyone's missing at the moment is, you know, Arsenal have that attendance. So what are Arsenal doing? What can like other teams do? Like, do they need to like do more advertising for games? Do we need to have more games at like their ground, like the men's grounds, for instance? And I feel like the minute that starts happening more and more, I think that will massively help grow everything.
No, definitely. I think there's so many ways that obviously women's football can grow as a whole. And I think one thing that I actually love is when we have a international tournament, when we
Yeah,
have the likes of the Euros, the World Cup, obviously because England, the Lionesses, we tend to be very good at them in recent years, which is obviously a great reason. But I think it's nice because I've got a lot of friends that support City, Chelsea, a few that are like different tiers, like Bournemouth, Newcastle, like so many
yeah.
random friends. And during the season, it's all like, I hate you, I hate your team, like that sort of vibe. And then suddenly you get to the summer and it's like, oh my God, we're coming together. And I think that sort of like shone through with the Euros, especially the one just happened in Switzerland, because it was like, you could tell that people were doing collabs, people going out with fans, and it's so nice to like bring everyone together. But I definitely feel like that can be implemented in sort of like every day. I'm just like thinking, when you said you want to reach 10k, that's your aim, have you sort of like, how are you with when you reach your goals? Like, do you reflect? Are you good at reflecting on goals, or do you sort of get to that point and you're like, okay, cool, tick, let's move on to the next thing, now we want to get 11k, 12k? Or have you sort of, I know before we started recording we were both saying that we want to invest in more equipment like cameras, have you sort of thought, okay, if I get to 10k I'll buy a camera or anything like that? Is that how your mind works, or are you sort of just, let's move on to the next thing?
I try to stay as present as I can with everything. I think that's always been something mental health wise I've always kind of like struggled at, is kind of looking towards the next thing all the time. So with this, I've always kind of thought to myself, let's just see how it goes. Let's have one step at a time every single day, and don't put too much pressure on myself. The minute I put pressure on myself, I don't enjoy it. And I think that shows all my videos as well, that like I just become so stressed trying to get something out. So I think for me it's always kind of been, right, let's just take one step at a time. Right, we hit 7k, right, let's try and hit to 8k, but it's not going to happen instantly, so let's just build up again. And that's how I kind of look at it. I'm like, yes, let's go. Like, I've done it. I put something on like my Instagram, some of my TikTok, some of my LinkedIn as well, that I've kind of hit that to celebrate it and have a bit of time to reflect. And I
No.
think that's really important. I just think it's really important to kind of just stay in the moment, because I also have always said I've never really wanted to jump up straight away, because I just find that way too much pressure on myself. So for it to be kind of slow, like slowly but surely, I've really been enjoying that. So I try to just take one step at a time. I have a massive schedule on my iPad that I always add to, like, right, what am I going to film today? What am I going to upload today? Just to help me stay on track. And then if like I've got like a bit of time to like do like a video, I know what I have to film, I know what I have to do, and then I can bring it out. So it's especially if like I'm like working, or like, you know, I'm out in the evening, then I can do that in the morning and it's all ready to go. So I always try and just make sure everything is just at small steps, because that's how I don't put pressure on myself, and that's so then my anxiety as well doesn't go really really off the like through the roof. It just stays really level the whole entire time. So yeah.
No, honestly, I think that's such a good way to be, especially with the, like you said on your iPad, you schedule things out, because full respect for that. For me, I feel like with this podcast, I've tried to not set the expectation too high and the workload too high for me early on. And in my head, I'm sort of thinking, okay, maybe if it's a few years down the line, like you never know, sort of what you're saying, you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, okay, maybe then I could do more than one episode a week, or get a couple of guests on a week, or things like that. But for the moment, getting a guest on every other week and doing an episode every week is good. And in my head, because it's on like YouTube, there's not as much pressure. Like you can, it's more long form. Whereas I feel like when I first started, obviously creating content like 3 years ago, if you want to word it like that, I literally was just on like Instagram, like TikTok, doing videos. And then some days I remember I went through like a period of like 3 weeks where I posted 3 videos every day, and I just it's not sustainable. Like for
No.
my lifestyle at that point, I was at uni, I was working in a bar, I was also doing a lot of voluntary work to get experience in the industry, as well as trying to do that. It was not sustainable. And even now doing this podcast, I'm sort of like, right, well, I've got work in a couple of hours, and I came back from work late last night. Like it's that sort of, it's very hard to manage it all. So almost don't put that expectation out for other people. So I think it's so good that you've taken the pressure off what other people are going to say by like creating your own schedule and your own thing in your head. And if anything, then it's just you against you, like, which is such a good mindset to have. So definitely, like, I feel like especially with short form content, which has to be a bit more often, a bit more consistent, that's definitely a good way to go about it. So yeah, I feel like that sort of was a nice chat of like finding out more about your journey into content creation. And hopefully anyone who's listening who doesn't follow or does follow you, obviously I'll plug all your socials in the comments and everything, because I feel like that would be really good to reach that 10k, and then everyone can go and say congrats as soon as you do that, because I feel like definitely that can happen this year, because if you look at the growth you've already made recently, like there's no reason why it shouldn't. But then if your goals change, then that's also okay. And that's something that I've realised recently, because I had goals of when I first started, I was like, I want to hit 10k of this, I want to hit 10k of that. And then I was like, actually, I'm not going to do it on Instagram or TikTok. I'd rather channel that into YouTube now. So then it's sort of, the goals have stayed similar, but they've changed to where. So I feel like you've got to just go with the flow with it. But obviously,
all sorts of scooter videos.
Yeah, no, exactly. We're going to bring them up.
Yeah, the scooter videos will come back as well.
Exactly. Like, I feel like, what is it, with every trend, we're sort of doing that 2016 trend. Why don't you just, like, 2016 trend, we're bringing back the scooter videos? Like, I think that's how it should go.
I'm gonna have to look back now in a minute. Like, I feel like my first scooter edit was actually in 2016. I'm gonna actually have a little look at that.
I'm actually so here
like
for this.
12 years old.
If anything happens in 2026, it has to be the revisiting of this. Like, we need to bring this back for sure. I don't even know what I was I feel like I was in 2016 or that time probably just making, like what was that app? It was like a movie app, like where you can change all the graphics and stuff. And like, as in, I remember you'd have songs like Bruno Mars or something, and then I remember me and my sister just like singing along to it. And I can't even remember exactly what it is, but it was sort of like a TikTok. Then musically, it was like before that.
Yes, musically.
Like, such a time what a time to be alive. Honestly, it was great. But focusing now on the present, because we are 2026. As much as I want to reminisce on 2016 forever, this season for Arsenal, because obviously this is the Arsenal Humans podcast, I want to bring it back to that. I want to talk about obviously the men and the women. I feel there's a lot to get in, and like me, you're very invested in both. Starting with the women, because I feel like most of this conversation has been about them so far. We like focus on the WSL firstly, because I feel like we're in quite a few competitions, and we've obviously already picked up silverware. But if we win our game on Sunday, this episode will actually come out in a couple of days' time, so it'll still be before. So if we win our game on Sunday, we actually go second, which means we'll be above Chelsea, we'll be above United. We'll still be 10 points behind City. Firstly, my first question on this is, do you see us winning against City? And then my second question is, do you think that we can still win the WSL title? Is it realistic, or is it a bit far out for each now?
I really hope we do beat City. Bear in mind, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff, and that's an early start. So I'm kind of like, my mind's thinking we're probably gonna lose, but another part of me's thinking, no. Another part of me's thinking, actually, like, I'm up first thing in the morning, and we did beat Chelsea 4-1 2 years ago when I thought we were gonna lose. So anything can happen. Like, City have got to lose again at some point. They're not going to finish the whole entire season being unbeaten, because they are now so far clear. They are basically now going to win the WSL. That it is the time now for them to potentially drop off. But then again, I'm not too sure. Like, I'd be happy with a draw. Last time I went, it was 2-2 when we played against City at the start of last season. So I'll go for 2-2 again. I think that's a good prediction. I think though the WSL is such a shame, because we've only lost one game, and that was to Man City. We have just drawn so many games this season, and it's so frustrating, because if we were to turn those draws into win, Villa, for instance, at the Emirates Stadium, Spurs, if the goals for Chelsea went in, then like we would be in the title race. So it's all like it's buts and maybes. And I'm just hoping that it's a learning curve for next season. As long as we finish in top three, I'd love for us to finish above Chelsea. I'm absolutely fine with that. We still got the Women's FA Cup to play for. We still got the Champions League to play for. Hopefully, anyway. Obviously, depending on the OH River and then playing against Chelsea, which I think should be the final. you know, I feel like there is still something for us to win. I just don't think it's a WSL unless Man City completely fall apart, which I just don't see them happening. But like, what? Fair play to Man City. They've been really good. They had so many injuries last season. So you know what? If anyone else is going to win the WSL, fair play.
Sadly, I completely agree with the with City obviously staying top. I think they've done so well, and I think it is partly like what you're saying because of the amount of draws we've got that it doesn't feel like that big of a loss when it's happening. But then over a few games, you're only picking up like 3 points when you could have been getting 9, and you're like, okay, that's when the gap broadens. Even when we're pulling off results against the likes of Chelsea, and we're like, oh my god, that's amazing. It is so frustrating. I hope a draw, but obviously I'd love a win on Sunday. But even when I look back to the last City game that we played, where obviously Chloe Kelly got it, equalised,
Oh yeah.
a big thing at former club, and then suddenly they scored a few moments later, and it was so humbling. And I was just like, I can't go through that again. Like that's just. But then I also don't want to go through like a 5-1 that Chelsea just went through against City. So I feel like it's so unpredictable. But sadly, yeah, the league's pretty much written off. It would be great to finish in top three, and I feel like that kind of going into the season. If anyone said at the start of the season you could be above Chelsea, I'd be like, oh my god, we're going to win it. Obviously, that's not how it worked out, but
Yeah.
like it sort of is that vibe of at least if we come in the top three, get Champions League football. That's all we need for next season. You obviously did actually just mention Champions League football then and how we could face Chelsea. I feel like I've got another couple of questions based on this competition, but firstly, then I guess you think we're going to face Chelsea, like you think we'll get through to the quarterfinals. And then also, do you think that we could actually be the reason that Chelsea don't ever win a Champions League? Like, do you think that we could be the reason that obviously they get knocked out at the quarterfinals?
I am so nervous for that game because by how Chelsea have been underperforming, the exact same for what I said about City losing. There's going to be a time when Chelsea just turn everything around, and I feel like their main focus this year has been the Champions League. You think about it, they didn't lose to Barcelona. They played really well against Barcelona,
They
and
probably should have won,
to
to
be
be fair.
fair, yeah, they should have won that game. So I do really feel like Chelsea's more focus is the Champions League. So we have to make sure that we are playing our absolute best. You know what? Like Russo has a really good performance. Push Mariona up. Have a really solid midfield. That's what I'd hope happens. But again, like anything can happen. I think whoever wins out of Arsenal or Chelsea will win the Champions League in general. That's how I think it is going to
Ooh.
go. Bold
That,
prediction, I know.
I was going to say, that's quite big. That is, because to be fair, I mean, I'd love for an English club to win it, but that English club has to be Arsenal. Like, I
Yeah,
feel
don't.
like I was actually talking on my pod earlier this week, saying, there was a lot of debate around, obviously, this talking more about the men's, but Spurs and City were playing in the Premier League, and then you had so many Spurs fans being like, I don't want Arsenal, like, I don't want to win this game because I don't want Arsenal to end up winning the Premier League. And I was like, I don't think I'd ever feel like that way. I feel like I'd always be like, love your club more than you hate another club. But the only exception would be Chelsea women winning Champions League, because I think that's the one thing that we can hold on to. Like the men obviously haven't done it. The men have won the Premier League. Like that's cool. But with the women, like we're the only English club to have done it. So I'm sort of just like that for me. Not that there would be a way, because obviously how the competition's laid out, that if we lost, then it means that they wouldn't win it. But I feel like that would be the worst thing to happen in the women's game as an Arsenal fan. So hopefully we can prevent that from happening. Hopefully.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, ideally they'll finish in fourth and then get knocked out to us, but I just see them turning their performances around, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, I think many people think I really dislike Chelsea. I spoke about it yesterday on the video I done. These performances from Chelsea I've been seeing coming for a while, just because in games they probably should have lost, they've drawn. Games should have drawn, they've won. And when luck is on your side, luck is fully on your side. Like that is just how it's gonna go.
Yep.
And when luck isn't on your side, then you know how the City game went, for instance, how the Arsenal game went, for instance. I actually think they didn't play that bad against us.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like that just go against you. And I think that's just what happened to Chelsea. But again, anything can happen. Champions League's a different competition. They will win the trophy this year, but yeah, I'm not looking forward to that one. I mean, I might have to mute. I might have to go offline for a week.
Honestly, I feel like I'll just be like, sorry guys, I'm not releasing any episodes until I've healed from this, if that was to happen. But the thing is, when I say like, I feel like as an Arsenal women's fan, it's rooted in you to dislike Chelsea women. But whether I dislike them or not, I respect their team so much. I respect their squad depth so much. And I think because they have that squad depth and because they are so good, it just feels like there's been a bit of a dip in their form recently. And maybe certain players are coming back and they're not as cohesive and don't work as well with other players. That maybe is the issue. But honestly, so much respect to their club as a whole, because I'm like,
Defo.
what they're doing is insane, and that's why there's that rivalry. Whereas if they sort of were like in relegation talks, I feel like we wouldn't obviously be like, oh, we won against Chelsea, like whatever. But because they are, they got the treble last season, because they are that good, then, I guess that's why the debate is created. But obviously this is the chance for Slegers to get another piece of silverware. I mean, yes, we've been knocked out of the League Cup, but we've obviously just won the Champions Cup. WSL, it's looking pretty unlikely. FA Cup, that's still early stages, but that is obviously a potential in the future. But I feel like, are we going to focus on Champions League? Like, firstly, what are your thoughts on Slegers? I feel like she's had a bit of a mixed season, so it would be interesting to hear your views on that. But also, in terms of silverware, what silverware do you think she can actually bring to the club, apart from obviously what she's already brought?
I'm such a Rennie fan until I still am a Rennie fan, but like April time last year, I feel like cracks were beginning to show with our performances. I feel like it's really cool that we have really attacking fullbacks, but at what cost sometimes. Like if teams are looking to hit you on the counter attack, you can't go as attacking fullbacks and that, because you're going to leave so much gaps, in behind for them to counter attack and score, which is what happened against Villa, what happened against Brighton in April, and happened a little bit against United, but we still managed to win that game. Then we won the Champions League, which again, I'm never going to forget that moment. I was actually on live watching the game, so that was an amazing moment.
So good.
But I feel like this season's been quite inconsistent. Like, I'm hoping now, winning against Villa, I know we lost to United, but then winning against Chelsea, winning against Corinthians, winning against Asfar. We've got a couple of wins now, like 3 wins in a row. So I'm really, really hoping that this is now the start of, the rest of the season. We're in crunch time now. And I always talk about a winner's mentality that you do pick up from winning trophies. But you have players that had that experience winning trophies. Anything can happen. And I do think that's where we are quite lucky. Like, I watched the documentary, Rennie Slegers, her managing skills was absolutely incredible. How, her tactics, reset, regroup. What I was saying about Chelsea yesterday, like, I think she's a really good manager. We just need to change the tactics a little bit. I think it feels like this season we've been waiting for next season in terms of the transfer window. We've seen rumours about Georgia Stanway, rumours about Honor, so much could happen next season. I feel like the club's holding out for that. But again, it's really, really strange one. It's more just like seeing how the rest of this season goes and see where Rennie's at the end of the season. But I guarantee you, this time last year, that Corinthians game, it would have lost. Because, we were ahead and they equalised quite unfairly. We'd have lost that game because I feel like our heads would have dropped. But we kept on going. I mean, a brilliant finish from Caitlin Ford, and I think that just shows what the club is at. It just seems like in knockout competitions, we're like prime Barcelona. That's what it seems like to me.
I quite like that comparison. I do feel like it's a fair point what you're saying, that because we know what it's like to win, the players understand, and a lot of the players that lifted that Champions League trophy then lifted that Champions Cup. Like, there weren't too many changes. It's obviously frustrating when people always look ahead to this player's been rumoured and things like that, because for me, until they're actually at the club, I don't know how they're going to work, and I don't know if they're going to be a great signing and what. Like, obviously you can see their pedigree and you can see what they've won and things like that, but until they're actually in your club. So it's definitely a fair point. And I think with Slegers, I trust in Slegers. I think she's brought obviously home 2 pieces of silverware in her first season, technically, like her first year managing us. So I'm hopeful, but I definitely, I feel like football's just so unpredictable. So even doing podcasts like this, it's like I'm just saying what I'm going off vibes. Like, I'm just saying what I'm feeling.
Yeah, no, same.
Exactly. It's not necessarily like, okay, this is actually definitely going to happen. So, but I think ultimately, hopefully, that Champions Cup last week gave Arsenal a bit of confidence. So then we're
Yeah.
going to go into the rest of the season with that confidence, knowing that we've already won silverware this season, we can carry it on. And I feel like that's sort of similar vibe to the men's. We're quite confident right now. I feel like in certain games, like we saw with United recently, got a little bit complacent maybe. Don't want to dwell on that game too much, obviously, but we are top of the Premier League still. We're actually 6 points clear now. And obviously, we had a perfect run in the Champions League, getting 24 points, obviously winning 8 out of 8 games. And the last game against Kairat was actually Arteta's 200th win as a manager. So I feel like it just marked off so much success. Obviously, we could talk about if we could win or if we're not going to win or what's going to happen. But I feel like the question that I want to ask you, that I feel like a lot of people are thinking at some point we might have to choose between it, as much as I feel like we do have the squad depth that hopefully could survive both competitions. For you personally, like, you can't be wrong because this is obviously just your opinion, but would you rather win the Champions League or the Premier League?
That is an absolute mega question.
Crazy.
Uh for me personally, I've always watched the Premier League, and I've like last time Arsenal won the Premier League was the year I was born. So I was alive,
A while ago.
um, but like literally like 2 months. So it'll be cool to watch us win the Premier League. I'm gonna go more towards the Premier League just because that's always been a competition I've really like watched throughout when I was younger as well. Because like Champions League, I was in bed sometimes when like the games were on. So I'm gonna say Premier League. I'd rather us win, and also as well we're 6 points clear. Imagine like the rival fans if we don't win the league.
That
I
is
mean
another
they've
time
given me
where
like
we shut off from the world.
they've given me like trust issues 3 years ago now, I think it was, when we were like so many points clear, and in April we just fell apart. And I'm a little bit concerned that'll happen again, but results are going our way. So, like City drew to Spurs after being 2-0 up, you know what I mean? So, anything can happen. But I'd rather us win the league just because I think it would mean more to me. But I mean, if we won the Champions League, I'll be buzzing as well. So, whatever happens, happens.
To be fair, it's a rough question, and I'm impressed that you've managed to come up with an answer, because I do feel like I talk to a lot of people, and for me, like, automatically in my head, I'd be like, well, Champions League. Like, if you asked me to start the season, I'd be like, Champions League, because the men have never done it, and it would be so cool to have success for the women and the men in Europe very close to each other. Like, that would be so good and nice to have that one club mentality. But then when you look, like what you're saying, the context of this season, I think if we don't end up winning the Champions League, it's a knockout competition at this point. Like, it's knockout stages where it's sort of who shows up on that day. Whereas Premier League is, have you showed up consistently throughout the season? And we have. And I think it would be honestly so heartbreaking is if we suddenly just, I don't know, a lot of people would say bottled it if we didn't end up doing it, because at this point we're so many points clear. We potentially could be at least like 10 points clear. That, yeah, I feel like I probably would lean more towards Premier League because of what other fans would say as well. It would be embarrassing, and there's more expectation, definitely. Not that you should base on what other people think, but definitely there's more expectation on us winning the Premier League and lifting that trophy, whereas with the Champions League, literally anything can happen. That's why I think when you look at the women, when we did it, our season was so all over the place. Like, the league was so up and down. Other competitions, I think we got knocked out, was it in like the quarterfinals to Liverpool, something of one of the League Cups? Like, it was so confusing. And then because Renee Slegers is good at the sort of knockout, like playing 2 games, then we ended up doing really well. So I think, yeah, such a tricky question, that I feel like it's hard to pinpoint that. But obviously, talking about cups, last night we actually got through to the final of the Carabao Cup, which is obviously really good. We ended up beating Chelsea, which last minute had to be from Havertz. I feel like it's always written for a player to score against their former club, like, or a club they've had talks with, like, you know, the way that Eze did earlier
Yeah.
in the season against Spurs, getting that hat trick. Like, I think it's always written, and I don't know how. I don't know if it's because they've got more in them, or especially Havertz coming back from injury. But either way, so good we've reached the final. Obviously, this is being recorded, but we don't actually know who the opponent will be. But by the time it comes out, we'll know whether it will be City or Newcastle. Firstly, who would you actually want it to be against? And then, do you actually see us winning the competition?
City or Newcastle. I'd rather it be Newcastle, just because. Oh, actually, I might change my mind. I'd rather it be City actually,
Okay.
because Newcastle had experience winning this trophy quite recently, and City have not played that well. I know it's like a one-off game, but at the end of the day, if you want to be the best, you're gonna beat the best. So you got to do you got to do. We've got to play City at some point. So I think we'd have a better chance in a one-off game beating Man City than beating Newcastle. But we're still up for the quad for the men, so we could win it all.
That's
Hopefully.
You heard it first. I'm just gonna clip up that section and be like, yeah,
Go for
we
it.
can do it. No, I think for me, I feel like I'd rather Newcastle because I think they're not doing as well in the league as I think they would have liked to. Eddie Howe's got a lot of pressure right now, so I do feel like there's a lot of talk around Newcastle, and with City, I just know that Pep would like turn up on that day. I just feel like he would. But either way, I do feel like we have a good chance to win. So it'd be quite nice for the men to add to the cabinet that the women have been growing the last couple of seasons, and it would just be good to, get more silverware. And talking of silverware, this final question I feel like in terms of Arsenal right now is there's been a lot of question marks about Arteta's future at the club. And a lot of people are saying, oh, he needs to win a Champions League, or he needs to win the Premier League, or he needs to do this, that, and the other. For you personally, what do you think he actually needs to do to stay at the club?
Just a trophy.
Any trophy.
A trophy. I don't care what trophy it is. Obviously not the Community Shield. I don't care if it's the FA Cup. I don't care if it's a League Cup. I don't care if it's a Champions League. For the money we spent, we need to have some silverware. But I think what's important, I know when success is always needed on trophies, just where the Arsenal team has come, from when Arteta took over, his first game against Bournemouth, we drew to Bournemouth, was really struggling that season. Bournemouth went down that season as well. It was not a great season for us at all. Forgot where we finished, but not somewhere we should be proud of. Missed out on Europe the season after, to then just regrouping, coming together, and now for 4 consecutive seasons, sorry, being in the title race. And I think that's something to be proud of. I think what's going to show if Arteta's the right manager if we do win the trophy, we can't be where we are now and then not have what it takes again, because that's not good enough. So let's just hope we win the trophy. But I don't want to see Arteta leave because he's done so much for the club. If we were in mid-table right now, it'll be done. But, we've still got so much to give, and I think Arteta has actually done really well this season.
Honestly, I really like Arteta as our manager, and when everyone's like Arteta out, Arteta in, I think with Arsenal, I hope this kind of, I don't know, sort of paves the way for other clubs to know that you can stick with a manager. I think if you look at a lot of clubs like Forest, Spurs, they've gone through about 3 or 4 managers, it feels like, in the last year, which is insane. Whereas I think for us, hopefully this will show that when you play the long game, when you allow a manager to build the team that he wants, because obviously when he first won silverware, people always say that's the previous manager's team. And that's what happens with a lot of clubs, even with Arsenal Women, with Slegers, she came in and that technically was a team that she helped build with Edeval. But whereas now, the signings that she makes this window, and also I'm intrigued to see the summer because I feel like that will obviously shape it more. But I think, with Arteta, definitely, hopefully they give him a chance and he can carry on. I'm just conscious of time because I actually feel like we could probably yap forever. And honestly, hopefully I'll get you back on
Defo.
Soon in the future at some point, definitely, to just chat more, and hopefully after we can chat about actual silverware that we've picked up and the outcome of Slegers and Arteta's future and their roles. But just to end this episode, I always do a little game, and I feel like I see you talk a lot on socials. I mean, we've spoken in this conversation a lot about Arsenal legends, especially in the women's side. I feel like Kim Little we speak about a lot, and I'm just intrigued. So I've sort of come up with a game, just winner stays on, Arsenal Women's Football Club Legend Edition. So I'll just say 2 names, and then you sort of just, which name do you think is seen in your eyes? So, by the way, no hate, because this is all your opinion. And obviously, if you do have a different opinion, then obviously you can let us know down in the comments. But obviously, this is just based off the players that I'm going to give you. So I've got about 8 or 9 players, and winner stays on. So who you think is the ultimate Arsenal legend? So the first one, Stina Blackstenius or Olivia Smith? Who is more of the Arsenal legend?
Gotta be Stina, scored the Champions League winning
Mm-hmm.
goal, scored the League Conti Cup now, sorry, winning goal. So yeah, I don't know if she'll be at the club next year, but I think
True.
she shows up when we need her in the final. So can never take that away from her.
100%. Okay, so Stina Blackstenius or Katie McCabe?
It's gotta be McCabe. 10 years
Mm-hmm.
at the club, done so much for the club as well. Like her journey going on loan, coming back, showing up every week in, week out, playing really well. It's gotta be McCabe.
I feel like it's really sad when you hear all the rumours, so I guess we're just going to have to see how that one
Yeah.
goes, whether she ends up leaving or where she goes to. By the way, this, I forgot to say, I've included some players that aren't at the club currently, like past and present as well.
Yep. All
Um,
good.
Katie McCabe or Kelly Smith?
Gotta be Kelly Smith.
Just just for that reason, just the name.
Yeah.
100%.
The legend, goals scored, everything she done for the club. Yeah, gotta be Kelly Smith. Absolute icon.
100%. Okay, so Kelly Smith or Lotte Wiebenmoy? I've not made
Right.
this easy.
I'm now having to like think. Gotta go for Kelly Smith just because Lotta wasn't like playing in the Champions League. But by the way, what a brilliant season Lotta's having so far. She's been one of my favourite players to watch. Absolute legend.
Completely agree with that. Okay, this one's interesting. Kelly Smith or Leah Williamson?
Arsenal legend. I'm Kelly Smith or Leah Williamson. Kelly Smith has won so much for us, but Leah Williamson helped us win the Champions League. And we learned in the documentary that Kelly Smith was not in the Champions League winning squad because suspension. So I'm gonna just go for Leah Williamson on that. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Ooh, if she's listening, which she definitely isn't, but if she is, I feel like she's gonna regret that suspension now if that's what's made it. Okay, this one.
But legend, by the way.
This one is interesting because they're actually good friends, as you see on their socials. Leah Williamson or Alex Scott?
Ooh.
In my head, this is a really fun game, and now I'm thinking, actually, this is really serious. Like, people are probably like, "Why are you saying this?" Like, these players. So.
I'm sorry. I'm going just for what she done for Arsenal. I've got to go for Alex Scott, just because of the history of Arsenal, what she helped us like build. If you're talking about legends, and like it's got to be Alex Scott.
And to be fair, when people say the word legend, sometimes it's like because their time's already happened, because it's in the past. Whereas Leah Williamson, I feel like there's still more. So if I asked you this maybe in 5-10 years' time, could get a different answer, who knows? Okay, so Alex Scott, or, as we found out earlier on the podcast, your favourite player, Alessia Russo.
In terms of legends and how much they've done for the club, as much as I'm a massive Russo fan, it's got to be Alex Scott.
Completely agree. Okay, and the final one, which I feel like I put them in the final one because I feel like they are my personal Arsenal legend. Alex Scott or Kim Little?
Kim Little, just so much. Arsenal through and through, absolute legend. She's still got one more season left in her, by the way. We can't have her retiring yet. Just don't play her as much next season, we'll be fine.
I feel like, honestly, the day she ends up retiring or leaving Arsenal, I will physically cry. Like, I just feel like it's going to happen at some point. But yeah, so after that little game, we found out that Mia's ultimate Arsenal legend is Kim Little. But obviously, if you guys are like listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, however you're accessing this podcast, let me know who your ultimate legend is. But only using the names that I've said, because otherwise that's unfair. Because I feel like you might have picked a different legend, so but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little podcast, this little chat all about Arsenal. Thanks for joining me, Mia, because I feel like hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Just before obviously I wrap it up, I'm just wondering if you want to plug your socials, because obviously we mentioned before about you reaching new milestones, especially with TikTok. So obviously I'll put it in the description, but anyone who's listening, if you want to say.
Yeah, so on Instagram and on TikTok, it's me.football7. Now you'll both find both of my TikToks and my Instagram. And my YouTube name, is me.football7 as well. I'll send the link over for
Makes it nice
you
and easy,
to access
you know?
as well. Scooter Reddit. Just search up me.football7 Scooter Reddit. You'll find it.
And it will be the first thing you see. You're going to suddenly get so many views after, and you'll be like, what?
It's going to be funny.